Sweet.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This week, another special guest. Me and this man go back, I think, a couple of years now. We've had Facebook Lives together, been chatting. Just a really good person and someone I'd love to actually hang out with in person when I start traveling again with all this COVID mess. But for those of you who don't know, this is Jake Sorosiak. He is a certified online fitness and nutrition coach committed to providing top-level fitness and nutrition training personalized to each of his clients' goals and abilities, which is literally what you're looking for in a coach. So Jake, for those that don't know you, I'd love to hear, about you and just your background and how you got into the fitness industry.
Wait, before we get into that, John, I'm going to put you in the spotlight real quick, man. Super grateful to be here, brother. It's funny, real quick backstory behind how I met John. So I had been following John for a long time. And John, you were like one of my heroes, bro, without even knowing it. I was just following you and I'm like, man, this guy puts out so much great content. And we have very similar values. I mean, you can see that you post your values. You're a phenomenal coach online. And I could see it without even knowing who you were. So I started that online training and nutrition, almost like a table trainers talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
During COVID. And I sent a message to John, honestly, never thinking that I'd get a response. That's how I thought he was a celebrity. At one point, I'm like, he's probably not going to respond, but I'll ask him if he can come on the show. And of course, John being the amazing human that he is, he came on the show and he added so much value. So again, just wanted a little backstory behind how I met John, how I got connected to John. And now it's crazy to think how much our relationship has built since then and how grateful I am to be in your circle, man. I know we joke around about being the Avengers of online training and nutrition coaches. I think John started that. That's how awesome your brain is, dude. So again, yes, super grateful to be here. Now to fulfill my need of giving a little background of me. So I am actually active duty Air Force. I have two jobs, if you will. I've been active duty Air Force since about 2015 and super grateful. Love that job. Love the Air Force. So I like to call training and nutrition, online training and nutrition, my little side passion hustle, if you will, my passion hustle. So I've been doing that. It's crazy to think since around 2016 too. And how I got started was I actually hired a coach. And now that coach that I hired is one of my best friends in the world. His name's Scott Stevenson, an amazing human being. I mean, I'm so grateful, so lucky to have so many people in my circle. But again, Scott coached me for 2 to 3 years, right? And it's crazy to think, actually, I was one of Scott's first clients and was just super dedicated to the plan. So again, followed the plan. Fast forward, he coached me. We built a relationship for 2 to 3 years. And at one point he had, so many people coming to him where he was like, hey, Jake, you've been with me for 2 to 3 years, dude. I love who you are. You'd be a phenomenal coach. Can you coach with me? Right. And it's almost like the rest is history because it's been 6 years now since I've started coaching. And again, I mean, to me, I'm just super humble, super grateful. I started not knowing much at all about training and nutrition. I just worked out and, I was passionate about it. I loved it. But again, now fast forward, it's probably been 12 years since I started training. Now I'm helping other people. I'm educating them, holding them accountable to their goals. And something that I like to do, a couple things that we'll probably go into in this conversation is, number one, make things simple. And number two, make training and nutrition a part of life, because I think a lot of people just think that that's their whole life, right? So how do we implement training and nutrition to create a happy and fulfilled life? And we'll talk about all those things. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself, John. Appreciate
Absolutely.
that,
brother. Man, I had no idea that that you were one of Scott's first clients. I know you introduced me to Scott through one of the trainer talks. And actually, fun fact, that's how I met, through the trainer talk, is how I met Doc Allen Bacon of Maui Athletics, and he's my coach right now. Actually, I hired him in January. Yeah. So it's a small world, and it's so crazy how things work out. Did you approach Scott for coaching? Like, how did you kind of get into that? Like, I need a trainer or something like that.
Dude, this is so cool. I call this destiny. I call this fate, John. So randomly, I'm scrolling on Instagram one day, and I see this shredded dude, this ripped dude, Scott Stevenson, right? He always stays shredded. If you know Scott, this dude's in phenomenal shape year round. So I see a picture of this dude, and it again in the description. What's crazy, John? I'm serious. I wasn't following him. I don't know. He didn't put an ad or anything. This is weird, dude, because again, Instagram, you don't see someone unless you're following them, unless they add. So
yeah,
I don't know how it happened, bro. again, seen a picture of this dude, read the description. I'm looking for 5 people to change their life, to help them with their training nutrition. I'm sitting here like, man, I'm in decent shape. I don't absolutely need a coach. Let's be real. But again, I mean, you miss every shot that you don't take, right? So I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'll take pictures of myself. I'll send them to this guy. I probably won't ever hear back from him again. But I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm shooting. I don't care. Fast forward, again, he chose me as again, I'm open here because Scott tells me this is funny. He put 5. I mean, I know now that he took on so many people. He took on like over 100 people, John, which is cool. Like that's how awesome Scott is. And I was one of the few that actually stuck to the plan because he offered it at first, it being free. He was, again, I mean, I'm talking about Scott because I absolutely love this dude. He was working, he was coaching on someone's couch. He was living on someone's couch when he first started coaching, dude, which is crazy. So again, he chose me as one of the 100, which I thought were the 5, where I was like, dude, this is awesome. I followed the plan to a T. Of course, super grateful to have the opportunity to work with someone. And again, man, just stuck with it. We developed a relationship. I mean, again, that I take pride in my personality. So I really wanted to add value to this guy too, be there for him. And man, again, I worked with him for 2 or 3 years and he was like, dude, you're awesome coach.
That's legit. What a story, man. Yeah. I mean, I think you radiate such energy online. And I guess it's weird to say sometimes of like, because we're online, but having conversations through text messages, through anything you've sent, like you draw in certain types of people. I think that's just who you are, which is like the Trainer Talks in 2020. That was a phenomenal idea. And we got to connect with so many other great coaches. And I think that's one of the beauties of online coaches and good online coaches. We're always looking to share, you can say share the wealth, if it's a wealth of knowledge or just helping other people as much as we can. Like some people will go into this being like, well, I'm going to do this for myself and I don't want to connect with other coaches because they're my competition. Where you're like, no, like everyone, let's get together. Let's chat. Let's help people with all of our different angles and experiences. And it's been great. I mean, I think anyone that's been on a Trainer Talk only improved, I think, their coaching, their personality from that, because roundtables like that they're pretty solid. And I remember even my uncle doesn't really comment on Facebook stuff or Instagram, but he was watching every Trainer Talk I was on. He's like, man, that was so cool to see you talking with other guys. And like, it's like, that guy was awesome. The other guy's cool. I'm like, I'm very, very fortunate. I think that's how I looked at it. So like I said, you're drawing people in. Now, when it came to you shifting gears and like becoming a coach, what was that transition like for you from like student to teacher, almost in a sense?
Yeah, real quick, I'm gonna answer that question, but I want to build on something you said because it's so true, John. And I know that a lot of people listen to your podcast and a lot of people are watching right now. And some people are trainers too. They need to hear this. What you just said, they need to hear that this isn't a competition, right? This is the way that I think. So like you said, some people have a scarcity mindset where it's like, if I help John get clients, then I have less clients. That is not true. Okay, there is never going to be a shortage for people that need you, that need trainers, that need people that are going to help them with their training. Never going to be a shortage, right? It's like saying I need all the money because there's never going to be any more. No, you can't have a scarcity mindset. So if you're a trainer, an online coach, or an aspiring online coach, the best way to become a better coach is to learn from other coaches, to pick their brain, to what I like to call reverse engineer. I love that John does this. John is amazing at his content. He's phenomenal at expressing his personality online. I like that. I want to do that too, right? Again, Doc Alan Bacon is phenomenal at making memes, right? He's phenomenal at adding humor to things too. He's great with that. I like that. I want to add that to me. Dude, I'm sorry about that if you can hear the ringing.
That's all right.
But that's awesome. We can't take that out. But again, that's it's important to know that there's never going to be a shortage of people who need online training and nutrition coaches. The best way to learn is learn from other people. Let's go back on that question. Thanks for me reflecting on that. Remind me, I'm gonna repeat the question back so I can remember. How did I go from being a student to being a coach? Correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, it's funny that you say that is because I'm going to build off of what I just said. I learned from other coaches, right? I had a phenomenal coach in Scott. And I knew that I didn't want, although I love Scott, I didn't want to coach the same way as Scott, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When people come to John or when people come to you as an online coach, they're coming to you for you. They're not coming to you necessarily for your knowledge, although you have to have the knowledge. like you just said, John, for me online, I like to put out who I am, because that's what's going to draw people to me and say, I want to work with Jake. I want to work with John. He has this. So again, what I wanted to do was take all the knowledge that Scott gave me and again, reverse engineer from other coaches. I followed you, John. I mean, again, dude, like I was in the background for a long time, bro, just watching you. Like this dude has great content. This guy puts out a phenomenal message. I'm going to take that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? It comes down to being in a calorie deficit. There's only so many ways you can say that. But if you add a little bit of your personality to that, again, that's how I became the teacher from being the student. As I said, hey, I now know enough. And this is hard to get past that, the imposter syndrome, right? Do I know enough to even coach? I now know enough to help other people because I have a lot of information that I know I can communicate with other people. And it's just taking that leap. It's saying I'm doing it. And, you know, again, I mean, it's funny. Like I can tell you stories. I got criticized for some of my coaching and I learned, but that's the thing. This is the key word, learned, right? I appreciated the feedback. I never took that as criticism. And I built from that. And now I'm still learning, right? I never think that I'm the best coach out there. I never will. I don't know if there is one. It's just a continuous learning cycle. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's a message I learned a long time ago, is not trying to be other people and just doing what I think is right for my business, my clients, and learning. I think any coach who stops learning or stops growing as a person, as a coach, you're just hurting yourself and you're hurting your clients, whether future or past or present. Like, I think if any of us, like if we've been at this since 2016, if you look back to things the way you did them back in 2016, you should cringe. I just think that's the way it should be, because if you don't, I don't think you've grown. Like I look back at old programs and I'm like, man, I feel bad for some of my clients back then. Cause like, yeah, I knew stuff, but at the same time, sometimes my message wasn't correct or how I approached the subject wasn't correct. And it's like, you learn. And I think learning and growing is one of the biggest things. And you hit the nail on the head. People don't buy information, right? Information's free everywhere. YouTube, Google, you can go rent books, whatever. But coaches is the difference, is the personality. It's the person you connect with, you resonate with. I had a client tell me recently, she's like on a call. So like, I'll definitely think about it. Like what you have is great. Just, you know, full transparency. I'm also talking to a few other coaches. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I get that. I want you to explore. She came back to me like a day or two later. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go with you because like your personality sticks out for me. Like I connect really well with you. You're super honest. And she's like, it's funny because everyone else was American and I was the only Canadian she was talking to. So I'm like, chalk it up to the Canadian niceness for me. I'm like, that's pretty funny. Yeah. I love that. I love to dive in because I know there's a lot of meat and potatoes in this chat that we want to go through. When it comes to, because most of us both help clients lose body fat, feel better, eat better, train better. I'd love for you to break down kind of your approach, your strategies here, and how you help clients do that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. You know, and again, reflecting back on what I said earlier in the podcast, my goal as a coach is to make things simple. So when I say things, I'm about to say some things that are just going to be super simple. And simple doesn't mean easy. Don't confuse simple with easy. I'm not saying these things are easy, but it's simple. And to me, as a coach, if you can help your clients make things simple, they're way more likely to adhere to it, right? The best coaches out there don't have the most knowledge, in my opinion. The best coaches out there are the coaches that are able to get their clients to actually adhere to it, right? Most of us, let's be real, honestly, know if we want to lose body fat, we should probably eat more nutritious foods. We should stop eating at McDonald's. We should start eating more fruits, vegetables, right? Protein. Again, we know what to do, but how do you get someone to actually do it? And that's where the secret is, if you will, with coaching. And that's where I think, again, the phenomenal coaches separate themselves from those who just know. And what I'm going to do here, and again, whether it's talking about building muscle, losing body fat, we'll focus on losing body fat first. I'm going to break it down into 3 simple things that you need to focus on. John, I'd love for you to elaborate on these things too, because you preach these. You're a phenomenal coach too. So the first thing that you need to focus on, John already knows it, it's focusing on being in a calorie deficit, right? If you want to lose weight, if you want to lose fat, you have, and most people know this when I ask them, you have to be eating less calories than you expend every day, right? Number two, you have to prioritize your protein intake. Protein intake is the most important macronutrient for you to build or maintain muscle while you're losing body fat. Most important macronutrient for staying satiated as well. When you're in a fat loss phase, you probably want to feel more full while you're dieting. Third, probably the most underrated thing, in my opinion, that would be extremely important that I really get my clients to prioritize is something called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Jake, what is that? That's nerdy. Essentially what it means is moving outside of your exercise. It's your daily movement. It's fidgeting. It's your steps, right? It's moving throughout your day. That is the biggest part of your metabolism that you can control. So moving forward, when we get older, everybody thinks your metabolism slows down. No, it's really because you move less, right? So again, prioritizing those three things are something that I get all my clients to do. And again, I'm having to interact with them twice a week. We're having monthly phone calls, just like John does. Again, that's where I get to coach. I get to educate, I get to coach. So John, build on that, brother. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, you covered the big rocks. Like there's a ton that goes into losing fat, getting in shape, whatever it might be. But when you can break it down to something simple, as you just put it, that 1, 2, 3 step, you're covering so much already without worrying about the nuance of meal timing and frequency. And you didn't even talk about cardio or strength training specifically, right? You talk literally about calorie deficit. Everyone knows what it is. Most people have a hard time getting there. I think that's the hard part. But when you do step 2 and you prioritize protein, I find 9 out of 10 times when I ask a client to eat more protein and they start kind of adhering to a higher protein intake, kind of automatically their calories regulate a little bit. They go down, right? Because when you're focusing on lean proteins, you're changing the way you approach meals, eating more whole foods. If you start eating more chicken breast, steak, eggs, you're going to have less room for the processed stuff. You're not going to crave the processed stuff or the sweet stuff as much because satiety factor from protein. And then NEAT is something I think is widely overlooked still. Most people, I think, when they want to lose fat, they think they have to do more workouts, more cardio, less food. And it's just this cycle of just burnout and just exhaustion, and it doesn't sound good. NEAT is literally just fidgeting more. One thing I tell my clients to do, because I'm working out from home, a lot of people are, in between sets, I'll just walk around my basement and I'll tidy things up. I make sure I put my phone on the other side of the room. So if I want to change the song, I'll go to my phone, I'll have to walk around to do it. So it just adds, like in an hour workout, I add at least 1,000 to 1,500 steps, which just makes my NEAT even better, makes my metabolism even more efficient for me. And I can lose more weight over time without having to cut my calories out. So I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Sweet. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And yeah, to build off of NEAT, again, to give people more of an idea of how you can increase your NEAT. It is those little things. Like you said, it's walking around during your workout, or it's parking further away at the grocery store, so you have to get in more steps. It is if you have AirPods in, a lot of people struggle with working from home, especially during these times right now. When you're struggling working from home, if you have calls, put your AirPods in, walk around during the calls. That helps tremendously. Little things like that. I mean, I have a friend named Matt Temby, again, one of my mentors, one of my best friends. He always says that small steps equal great distances over time. Huge pun there as well when we're talking about this. But it again, I mean, you can apply that to any area of your life. Your training, your nutrition, your life. Just take small steps. Focus on more steps. Focus on more NEAT. Again, apply it to any area of your life, and it'll help tremendously.
I love it. Small steps add up. It's true. It's not usually these big leaps and bounds you're gonna make, right? It's the little things that add up. Having more protein, you're not going to feel thinner right away, but over time, as your metabolism adapts, as your body adapts, you're going to feel a difference. Same thing with NEAT. Same thing with just literally anything. It's the slower and steadier process than just let me cut out all the things and look for some fast progress.
Phenomenal, brother.
Yeah. Buddy. What do you got next for us?
Again, let's build off of. Some people want to lose body fat, but what if someone's listening right now, John, and they want to say, hey, I want to build muscle. I don't want to get leaner. I don't want to lose body fat. I want to build muscle. Now, let's take it, turn the table, and say, let's break that down into 3 simple steps. Okay, 2 of which are exactly the same. So this will be very easy, very simple. Number 1, priority. If your goal out there listening, watching is to build muscle, Number one, you have to be in a calorie surplus, okay? Not a calorie deficit. You can't be eating less. You have to be eating more. Again, most people know this. You have to be eating over your maintenance. That muscle needs to be built from being in a calorie surplus. Number two, you have to prioritize your protein intake. Muscle is literally made out of protein, right? We have to prioritize your protein intake. Again, that stays, this is a big question I get. It stays generally around the same, whether you're in a fat loss phase or focusing on building muscle. Again, general recommendation, 0.7 gram to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And then the last thing, something that a lot of people don't think about, I think it's often overlooked, but we know about it, is what's called progressive overload. Essentially what that means is getting stronger over time, right? And again, there are various ways. I teach my clients 6 ways to approach progressive overload, some of which include adding weight, right? We know those, adding reps. And again, there's other ways to apply progressive overload over time, get stronger over time. And again, prioritize a stimulus for your muscles to be able to be able to adapt to that extra stimulus. It's just getting stronger over time. So progressive overload, extremely important, along with calorie surplus, along with enough protein. What do you got on top of that, John?
Love it. And well, I think just going back to the fat loss part, you should be aiming to get stronger while you're trying to lose fat too. I think that's a problem people have. I don't know why. And maybe it's just the way things used to be is people would enter a fat loss phase, say, I want to go on a diet. They'll start doing all kinds of reps, 15, 20, 25 reps, lightweight. And then they're like, okay, I want to build muscle now. And then they'll go like 3 reps, 5 reps, 7 reps. And I'm like, well, but why? You know what I mean? Like there's no real evidence to suggest that either of those 2 ways will help. So progressive overload is, how do I put this? It's like the key to building the body you want. Either way, you're going to need muscle. For the women listening to this, I know building muscle sounds like a scary thing. Now, when we say that, it doesn't mean you're going to become this big wrestler body type jacked. It's not going to happen. Muscle is lean tissue. The only reason you see people like Jake flexing those guns, if you look at me, I'm a pretty big guy. It's because I'm a bigger dude. Like that's why I am so big. Women should be aiming to build muscle as well, because it's only going to help with the body that they want. Most people want tone, they want definition, and you can't have definition without muscle. So there should be phases of building muscle. There should be phases of losing fat. And for those of you who are plain beginners, you're the lucky ones. You can do it both at the same time for a short period of time. You can lose some body fat and build some lean muscle, but it doesn't last forever, and it's pretty limited.
Yeah. And most people don't fit into that category, like the newbie category, if you will. So again, like you're saying, John, focus on one and stay on that, right? Don't be wishy-washy. And again, that's the benefit of having a coach, because a coach keeps you accountable, gives you the blueprint, gives you the guidance towards your goals. And then again, keeps you accountable to that. Because I think sometimes we get caught up in, well, I want to lose body fat. No, I want to be bigger, right? It's like a week of being in a calorie surplus, a week of being you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
Focus on one, prioritize one, and then move forward with that. And again, learn how to do both as well. And, again, we're talking about having a coach. That's a huge part of having a coach is the education, the things that we're doing for you guys right now. So yeah, man, phenomenal points there. I really appreciate you adding on to that.
Yeah, man. What other mistakes are you seeing with people when it comes to losing fat or building muscle? You mentioned about not staying in either phase long enough, which is super common. What else do you see out there?
Yeah. So you want me to go through mistakes that I see commonly, whether it's losing body fat or building muscle, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
I think the biggest one that we could probably talk about here, I'm sure we can, think of different lists. I would love to talk about anyone listening right now that focuses too much on the scale,
Nice.
moving or not moving, right? What I do, again, to make this as simple as possible, I think a lot of our conversations with our clients, I'm sure that we would agree, are about the scale, right? Why it's moving, why it's not moving. What I try to do for all of my clients are 2 things. Number one, educate them on the anomalies that have to do with the scale changing from day to day. And again, we can go back and forth with these, just a couple: your carbohydrate intake, your water intake, hormonal fluctuations, right? Sodium intake, stress levels, all those things have to do with how much water your body holds onto, and your food as well. Your food intake plays a role in that. I mean, I've seen people, their day-to-day fluctuations on the scale go from 2 to 10 pounds up or down, which is crazy. Again, we know we're not gaining 10 pounds of body fat. We're not losing 10 pounds of body fat overnight. It's insane, right? So again, realize why that scale changes from day to day. And then the second thing is realize that it's not something that you can control, right? I think a lot of people, when they set this weight loss goal and they work with John for 12 weeks and they make so much progress. They develop a better relationship with food. They lose body fat. They, again, learn so much along the way. I mean, we could go on and on about the benefits, but they don't reach their weight goal and then they're disappointed, right? When we set expectations in our lives, no matter how much progress we make towards those expectations, if we don't reach the expectations, we're disappointed. So for me, I would say let's take out that expectation of the scale reaching a certain number. Let's realize why you really want that. Why do you want that number on the scale? And then again, what can we control? What can you really focus on? Your diet adherence, your training, right? The way, your education. Do you realize why the scale goes up and down? Again, all the things that you can control. What do you think, John, in
Oh
terms of the
man.
scale? How do you help your clients do that?
The amount of conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks, especially, and I don't blame my clients, right? It's we're programmed to have so much emphasis on that number. I've been there from time to time where I'm like, shit, like it's not moving. Like, why isn't it moving? And you have to kind of bring yourself back to reality and be like, you know what? At the end of the day, the number doesn't matter. Like if I get a check-in and someone tells me their clothes fit better, they're down a waist size, they have more energy, they're stronger, they feel great, but they're disappointed about the number. It's like, but why though? You know what I mean? We have this emotional connection to the number. And I think part of what I'm doing with a lot of people is not even weighing them in. I'll get their initial and maybe we'll do it once a month when we do photos and measurements. But at the end of the day, there's so much more to a fat loss journey than how much you weigh. Because if you're feeling 10 out of 10, like I said, pants are fitting better, clothes are fitting, more confidence, all this stuff. But then I told you were a scale weight that you weren't comfortable with. All of a sudden that number changes how you feel about yourself. That's wrong. Like that's not how we should approach things. So it does come with a lot of education. It's like anything else. It's reprogramming, right? If we're used to that number and we want to look at the number, for me, the scale, there's two real ways to approach it. Either you're going to weigh in daily and look at trends, but take the emotion out of it, or not going to weigh in at all, because anything in between there is just setting you up for feeling like a failure, frustration, anger, sadness. Like there's a range of emotions people feel when they go through the scale. And something I've loved doing is not weighing in and just having photos to send my coach. I did like an update last week on my first month of progress because I want to be transparent with everyone on how things are going with me. And yeah, the scale dropped 11 pounds. That's not what I'm after though. Like in my first initial, like when I was like, oh, I got a DEXA scan and this is my goals, I put lose 10 pounds of fat. I lost 11 pounds on the scale in the first month. I'm not happy where I'm at yet. I'm not at my goal at all. So it doesn't matter what that number says. And I make sure to explain that to people. It's like, it's not what the number is. It's how you feel about yourself. Have you learned? Have you changed your habits? And the biggest thing, and you can allude to this more, and I can go for days on this, is controlling what you can control. You can't control what that number says. You can have a picture perfect day and the scale might read a pound heavier the next day. So what? It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It literally could be from all the things you listed: stress, hormones, too many carbs, too much water, too little water, not enough bathroom visits, time of the month. Like there's so many things. But it's like you said, it's constant education with our clients and how to get them around it or through it, depending on what their situation is.
100%, man. That's so much value right there, John. That needs to be a snippet of this podcast, dude. You that was a phenomenal answer, and you're exactly right. Two things that I just to cap off this question, the two things that I always ask my clients when they have a weight loss goal or any weight goal. Number one, I ask them because it's usually 6 weeks into the program, they'll say they're disappointed. I'll ask them, okay, Cindy, how many people have asked you how much you weighed since we started working together? The typical answer is 0, right? Yeah. No one asks you how much you weigh. No one cares but you. That's number one. And then number two, I always ask them, let's fast forward, right? And say you reach your goal, you've lost 10 pounds. How do you feel differently then than how do you feel differently now, right? What is the feeling that you think you're going to have when you see a certain number on the scale? More self-confidence, more knowledge, lost body fat. You don't just say, I just want to look at the number on the scale and see that number, right? It's all those things that are, again, the things that you can control versus that number on the scale. So again, most likely than not, unless you're weighing in for a wrestling match that's coming up, right? You want a feeling that you think you're going to have when you see a certain number on the scale. That's what we need to chase versus the number on the scale.
Agreed. Boom, mic drop. That's it, my man. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and talking about that, something else I wanted to talk about, John. We can go back and forth on this. A lot of people don't just struggle with losing fat, they struggle with keeping it off, right? Creating something that's sustainable. And something that John and I'd like to say I take pride in this as well, is that not just teaching our clients how to lose body fat, but how to keep it off forever, developing habits to create something that's sustainable, meaning you can do this forever. Again, John and I, we both know that there's so many different types of dieting out there. And again, a lot of the ways that are out there aren't sustainable for people. So John, let's go back and forth real quick on how do you help your clients create something that is sustainable for them, meaning they can do it for the rest of their lives?
Yeah. So it starts with setting expectation, right? You're not going to lose, and this happens even before we even have day one. It's like, you're not going to lose 30 pounds in 8 weeks. Like, nothing like that's going to happen. But really, it's all habit based, right? It's making sure that what we are doing together, my client and I, works for the lifestyle they have, right? Because a lot of times what happens with people is they take a diet, say, I'm going to go on this diet, and they try to adopt their whole lifestyle around the diet, whether it's low carb, whether it's no carb, whatever it may be, hours of cardio, no alcohol, like whatever it is. And it never works, because you're trying to overhaul how you live to fit in this little box that isn't meant to fit long term. It's not meant to be that way. Something, I forget where I read it, but I think it was told on one of the podcasts, was like, you can't just say I'm going to go on a diet and then expect to lose the weight and keep the weight off. People don't maintain a body composition by going on a diet, right? That's the one thing. It has to be a lifestyle. It has to be habit based, and behavior change is hard. It's hard. We've been living a certain way for a long time, and now you come into this thing and you're like, well, I have to do things differently now. It's not easy. So I try to focus on 1 to 3 things a day, especially in the beginning, to not overwhelm people. Because again, when you jump into something new, if you've dieted in the past, which most people have, it can be overwhelming, and you think you have to do all the things at once. And if you don't get them all right, you don't do it consistently right off the bat, you're like, oh, I'm a failure, I can't do this. So 1 to 3 habits. We talk a lot about movement on a daily basis, whether it's workouts or walks, just to get the body moving. Most people haven't been consistent with workouts, so that's a big one. I do like to talk about water intake. I think that's highly overlooked. I can't picture life without having like 2 liters of water a day. I think it'd be odd. And then we talk about, I like to talk about protein a lot, just because I feel like, again, whether they're tracking their calories or not, when they're having more protein at each meal, or they're building meals around protein sources, automatically they start to eat better, right? You're not going to go trying to order takeout with a protein-based meal is nearly impossible. So it's like either ordering less takeout right off the bat, they're cooking more food, they're planning ahead of time for their meals, which is a big game changer too. But that's kind of like the big 3. And then after that, we get into more nuance of like sleep patterns and training and stuff like that. But it starts with bigger habitual movement, protein, and water.
Love that, man. A lot of gold nuggets in there. To reflect on 2 things that really stood out to me that you said, John. First off, something that you said that, in my words, I'm going to say it, although you said it a little bit differently. You get your clients to focus on making progress instead of them being perfect, right? Just take small steps. Instead of looking at this as a huge race, let's take the next step, and I think some of us overthink, or we feel overwhelmed when we look at a goal and we're like, how do we get there? But what John just said, which was phenomenal, is he said, hey, look, you have that goal out there. You're stuck in the woods. You want to know how to get out. Take the next step, right? Don't worry and don't get overwhelmed with getting out of the woods. Can you see in front of you? Yeah. Okay. Let's take that next step.
Nice.
Let's stop being overwhelmed with getting out of the woods or looking at that goal. Let's just make progress instead of being perfect. That was awesome. And then to reflect on 2 things that I teach my clients on how to create something that's sustainable. Again, very simple. Number 1, you said it, which was not changing your whole lifestyle to fit into a diet. Change your diet to fit into a lifestyle. Number one way to create something that's sustainable, finding a training and nutrition routine that fits into your lifestyle. If you're a nurse, find something that fits into your lifestyle. If you can't eat 5 meals a day, don't feel like you have to, right? You don't have to. If you work night shift, don't feel like you can't eat at night because it's going to gain body fat.
Mhm.
Again, that's not true, and it doesn't fit into your lifestyle. If you like carbohydrates and you think you're going to go on keto, and you're going to be miserable. Even if you do lose weight, lose body fat, and stay in a calorie deficit like we just talked about, it's not going to last. So what John and I know John promotes this because I follow him enough to say this, is that he promotes and educates you on how to incorporate flexible dieting into your lifestyle. How to, the second thing, enjoy your nutrition and your training, right? So again, you should not be eating chicken, broccoli, and rice for the rest of your damn life, right? You should be able to fit in foods that you want, you like, you enjoy. John and I both coach our clients on how to do that. So again, number one, fit a training and nutrition routine into your lifestyle. Your lifestyle is different than mine, it's different than John's, different than Joe Schmo's out there. Number two, find a way to enjoy it. Fit in foods that you want, you like, you enjoy. Don't restrict yourself. And again, restriction generally leads to binging. We can go back and forth on that. But again, don't restrict yourself from certain foods. There are no foods that you have to eat for fat loss. There are no foods that you can eat for fat loss or building muscle. So yeah, fit it into your lifestyle, enjoy it. Boom, sustainability.
Perfect. And it's 100% true. Because I don't know about you, I've done meal plans before when I was younger. I didn't know as much, and it was Monday to Friday. Yeah, I stuck to it. I didn't necessarily enjoy it, and then the weekend came. I was like, oh, okay, sweet, cheat meal, cheat day time, and then it was just lose 10 pounds, gain 10 pounds, lose 10, and it was just the same old cycle. And I tell people all the time, especially I work with a lot of moms. I'm like, look, if your kid has a birthday party coming up, you're telling me that you're not going to have a piece of cake with them or some ice cream or enjoy the party. You're just going to, I don't know, sit with like your keto meal. Like, no, like you're going to enjoy, you want to enjoy life. Like the other thing too, when it comes to, we haven't talked about this with the lifestyle, is like, if you do have kids, they're watching you. They're watching everything you do. If you're constantly picking at your food and talking about cutting things out, or I can't have this, or your kids are listening everything you say. In this household, my 5-year-old already knows what protein is. He knows it's important. He wants to get strong and healthy, making sure he's eating his protein. Like that's the kind of stuff we're trying to have here. But he knows also that, we'll have donuts or we can go out for ice cream or whatever it is, but that's not what we build our meals on. Like if it was up to my 5-year-old and his diet, if you wanted to choose it, it'd be like nachos and pizza and chocolate all the time. Right. Which you, as adults, we're better than that. We know vegetables are good for us, protein is good for us, but it's that behavioral change. So I think enjoying it is key. And I want to talk about that a little bit too, is like, I'll never make an arbitrary meal plan for someone. I think they're not helpful. The only times I'll help with that is steer them into a direction if they really need, they have no idea what to do. What I love is to educate them on how to make the meal plan themselves. I'm like, here's a list of great protein sources. Here's a list of great carbs. Here's a list of vegetables that you can just eat, whatever, and fruits. And here's how you kind of put them together. Take the foods that you love, cook some of it, put them together. Tell yourself, I'm going to have this meal on this day. This is my breakfast. This is my lunch. This is my dinner. When you can create your own meal plan, it's not a restrictive meal plan. It's just how you eat. And if you like the foods you're eating, it's not going to feel like you're on a diet. And that's one of the best things I've ever heard from clients. It never felt like I was on a diet, is exactly what I'm after. And I'm sure you're the same way, Jake. Like, going into a diet already sounds terrible. Eat the foods you love and lose fat. Sometimes it sounds too good to be true, but with the education that you and I give our clients, we make it possible for them to see it.
Agreed. 100% agree. Yeah. Again, you can follow a meal plan for 12 weeks. Some people are extremely insanely dedicated to follow it for like 6 months, a year. But again, what do you do after that? Like John just said, what do you do when you go through the holidays, when you go on vacation, when you go out to eat? You don't want to bring Tupperware. You don't want to be that person to bring a food scale and Tupperware to a restaurant. Again, live your life. Most people, this isn't life, and that's something that I want to talk about next. Like, how do you incorporate training and nutrition into your overall life? Because I have to remind my clients constantly, a lot of them, that training and nutrition are not your life. They're just a part of life. Although they might be a big part of life, they're still a part, right? Again, you have a family, you want to be able to enjoy your lifestyle, your again, vacations, holidays, things like that. So yeah, following a meal plan is not something that's sustainable for mostly, I mean, I want to say all people, but for most people. And again, I do provide meal plans just like you do, John. I give them an example meal plan,
Mhm.
right? If they want it, they have it. And then, like you said, hey, if you want to adjust it on the meal plans that I give my clients, they can adjust it themselves. There's a bunch of food lists. Go ahead, adjust it. If you want it chicken instead of lean ground beef, fit it in, do it yourself. I'm not just going to make you a bunch of meal plans and send them to you. Again, that's not educating. That's not, in my opinion, and John will agree with this, it's not a good coach, right? It's like taking their hand and walking them through a maze. You want to be able to educate them on how to get through the maze so they know how to do it themselves. Not here, just take my hand and hold my hand for the rest of your life, right? You're not going to do that. That's not a good coach.
I love it. Your analogies are A1, top of the game. I love it. Between the woods one and the walk to the maze one, I'm like, this is good stuff. I'm like, gonna use this. I love
I
it.
love analogies. Yeah, it makes it simple. It makes you understand. Like you can visualize that walking through a
Yeah,
maze, and getting out of the woods. Yeah, I appreciate that. I do use a lot of analogies
I
now that
love
you
it,
bring it
man.
up.
Yeah, I mean, it's help. It's part of coaching, right? You have to, if you the way you describe something doesn't connect with your client, they're not going to understand it. And if they don't understand it, we're not doing our job. So if it's an analogy, the one I always use with people, because we talked about focusing on what you can control. I always talk about. I mean, I'll usually use hockey because I'm Canadian, but you can use it with any sport. When you're playing a sport, you're not staring at the scoreboard expecting it to change. You're playing the game. So staring at the scoreboard is looking at the scale and wondering why it's not moving. Playing the game, focusing on the habits that you can control so you can get the result you want, win the game, quote unquote, so to speak. So that's my go-to. But yours are creative. I do like yours too. I'm gonna steal some of those for sure moving forward.
Throughout years, everything that I've learned is not me, man. I didn't come out of the womb from that. It's all reverse engineered from someone else. I heard it from someone else. So, yeah, man, thanks for that. I appreciate that feedback.
I love it. Let's jump into the lifestyle approach, man, because I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I really want to be able to add value to your listeners and everyone watching here to think about what actually leads to happiness and fulfillment in life. Again, that's something that I prioritize with all my clients is not just helping them with their training and nutrition, but actually, I don't want to say like being a life coach, but implementing some of those things too to make sure that they're using their training and nutrition as a huge part of life. So, again, simple for me, and we can elaborate on these. I'd love to hear your take on these too.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest questions that I get is, how do I become more happy in life, and how do I get fulfilled? I think that happiness, I'm sure that we'll agree, it's up and down, it ebbs and flows. Fulfillment is something that you can actually create in your life, and to me, it comes from two things. So number one, happiness to me, this is again just my version of happiness. It comes from making progress. And I've noticed that being a coach, helping other people, we're talking so much about goals, John. Sometimes when people set this goal, again, they focus too much on the goal, but sometimes when they're making progress towards that goal, I noticed, and I'm sure you noticed as a coach too, that people email you, they check in, and they're so much happier, right? Even though that they're not at the goal, they're making progress. So that's something that I've learned in my life is that even if you have a goal, the goal, the real goal should be to make progress, to take steps in your life, and don't focus too much on the end goal. Focus on taking that next step, just like we talked about, and you will continue to find that happiness in your life. No matter if it's in your relationship, at work, with your training and nutrition, focus on making progress. Focus on being better each day, learning something, applying something every day. And again, to me, that's where happiness comes from. Before we go into fulfillment, John, what do you think? What do you think is the foundation of happiness for most people? What do you think about that, brother?
This is a tough question. And as you were talking about it, I was trying to think of like myself and happiness. I mean, one of the biggest parts of coaching, and even in general, because you mentioned relationships too, is communication. I find a lot of the times the clients that are open with me, frequently communicating with me, whether through the Facebook group or messaging or their check-in form, whatever it is, those that are the most open and communicating usually do the best and usually have the best kind of mindset about things, right? What tends to happen sometimes is we get frustrated, whether in relationships, whether in fitness journeys, whatever it is, we shut down, right? We take it all and we hold it all in ourselves. I'm very much guilty of this up until like the last year and a bit. And you just kind of fester in it. And then you're frustrated, but then you don't communicate with your spouse, significant other, coach, about how you're feeling. So in a fitness sense, if your coach doesn't know how you're feeling about how you're doing or you think you're not doing, the coach can't really help you. So if you're communicating open first, it's a great release to get it off your chest and just speak your mind and tell someone how you're feeling. And people are like, every so often I get, oh, I'm sorry, that's TMI. And I'm like, honestly, it's never TMI. Like I'm always here to support and listen when you need me. And I'm whatever you want to share with me. If it's too much, if it crosses the boundary, I'll tell you. But I've never come across that. And with relationships, you have to be open with the other person. Like if you're closed off, you're not going to ever feel happy because you're never expressing how you're feeling. And I think that's the biggest thing. So when you say about making progress, sometimes it's just sharing something that might be bugging you. Sometimes it's sharing small wins in fitness. I think are very, very overlooked because everyone's looking for that big, I lost 4 pounds this week. It doesn't happen like that. Celebrate the small stuff. Did you get protein in that breakfast? Awesome. That's something you've been working on for so long. And then you get that win, you build off the win, you feel accomplished, you feel great. So that's my long-winded answer on how I kind of see happiness. It does ebb and flow, like nobody's happy 24/7, but it's something it's always going to be a work in progress. I think it gets a little easier over time.
Man, what a phenomenal answer. I love where you took that, started with communication, but also something that I heard there without you having to say it is also being vulnerable enough to communicate all those things. That's what makes you such a phenomenal coach, John, is that you open the door to communication to say, hey, look, tell me the things that you're struggling with, tell me the things that you are succeeding with so we can keep track, and again, like you said, celebrating those small wins. If they didn't communicate, you would never know. Right. So for them to be able to communicate with you, it opens up the door and then you can give them that feedback. Sometimes people are doing such a great job, but they need to hear it from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
We can be our own worst critics. And again, John, like you just said, that's a phenomenal way to approach coaching because you open up the door, they can communicate their wins, and then they can also hear that back from you. You are losing body fat, you feel better, you have more energy, and they're like, damn, John has a great point. I am happier. So man, that was a phenomenal answer, dude. I love where you took that.
Thanks, man. I try.
Yeah. Let's delve into the last one here because I know I'm taking up a lot of time. Fulfillment, right? Excuse me. So to me, again, simple, and I'll build off of this. Fulfillment comes from two things in our lives. And although I don't think fulfillment is necessary for a lot of people, I think a lot of people are chasing this, but they don't know how to feel fulfilled. And two things that I've learned, again, that have led to my fulfillment or leading to fulfillment in my life. Number one, growing as a person, learning mentally, emotionally, becoming better. Again, in relationships, with your training, with your nutrition, growth, being a better person every day, every week. We started off the podcast, right, by reflecting back on when we first started coaching. We're like, damn, we've grew a lot. And that has led to that's a part of our fulfillment in life. We are a better person as we continue to live life. Number two, this is something that John and I prioritize because we're coaches, is contributing to other lives. Contribution, right? Not just growing, but growing enough to have something to give to other people, to contribute to other lives. This isn't about me, this is about we, right? Again, so if you're listening out there, great. If you're growing, find something that you can give to. And it doesn't have to be you becoming an online coach, right? Simple things. Giving might be giving someone a compliment. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. We're all in our own heads and it's just tough, even though we like John's headphones. Those are awesome headphones, dude. I'm jealous of you. It's just tough to say that, right? Yeah. Like, dude, those are awesome headphones, man. It's tough sometimes to give a compliment, but that's giving, that's contributing, right? Giving your time, giving your money, giving your energy, giving an open ear, like John just said, being there for someone and listening to them. That is contribution. So two things that I've really found, and I'm going to argue with this all day. If people are like, I got nothing to give, you do have something to give. You have time, you have energy, you have the ability to listen to other people. You have something to give. So continue to prioritize growth, continue to prioritize contribution, giving, and that will continue to lead towards fulfillment in your life. What do you think about that, John?
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a great breakdown, man. I mean, when you brought up the topic of fulfillment, I always have a hard time wrapping my head around that. Sometimes around like more complex concepts. I need like a step-by-step. I'm like, oh, like, what does that mean? But yeah, definitely, I think growth is a big thing. And I think a lot of the times, whether on purpose or just that's life, is I think a lot of people lack self-awareness, right? Because they're just busy. They're just like swept up in the day-to-day, that they don't take time for, who they are, who they want to show up as on a daily basis. And it's not easy. If you do any self-awareness exercises, just be ready, because it's like you're going to dig a little bit into your habits, how you approach things. One of the things I've loved doing is journaling. I do morning and evening. I don't remember all my night journals, but the prompts help because they make me think differently about, okay, how am I approaching today? And I recognize immediately when I journal versus when I sleep in and miss it, my days are completely different. I'm chasing my tail. I'm behind the eight ball. I'm out of sorts if I miss that morning kind of me time. And I think for a lot of parents, it's hard to get, whether your kids wake up super early or you're lucky like me that your kids don't. It's important to take time to have some self-awareness, because that leads to growth, right? If you're not improving as a person, maybe you're going to have some resentments. Maybe you're not going to love yourself as much. You're going to just be angry all the time because you're stuck in the same place. The last thing I want to be is stuck in the same place, both fitness, business, relationships. Something I've definitely prioritized, especially this year. Last year was a tough year, the back half of last year. So it made me really dig deep and look at, what kind of father do I want to be? Husband, coach, business owner, athlete, there's everything. And giving to others is a big one. And yes, you can give in a number of ways. Time is sometimes the hardest for people. Money is sometimes the hardest for people. Giving people compliments, like you said, can be awkward if you let it. But I find once you do it and you see the positive reaction you have the other person, it's like, oh, cool, man. Like, I didn't really say anything groundbreaking, but I just, that person looks awesome today. Great. And it just, when you can be positive to someone else, it comes back on you too, right? You're not giving to get, you're just giving to give and just bring more positive to the world, radiating new kind of energy. And I find, again, a lot of the time is, especially the last 2 years, there's a lot of negativity surrounding a lot of stuff. So how you go out into, whether it's social media or the real world or whatever you want to call it, the energy you put out is the energy you're going to get back. If your newsfeed is full of negativity and fighting and arguing, that's all you're going to see. That's all you're going to feel. If you follow people like Jake, you're full of positive all day long, right? You're going to get great messages. So controlling, I think, your environment in that sense too, when it comes to fulfillment, is if you control your actions and your environment around it, it'll only benefit you and help you with that fulfillment piece. I hope that was helpful. I know I just ramble sometimes.
It's so helpful, bro. I know again, John, dude, your quote unquote rambles, what you think is rambling is gold. I'm telling you, bro. I'm listening to everything you're saying. I'm taking mental notes right now, bro. So ramble on, John. You're doing a great job, bro. Again, to give you feedback on what you just said, man, because it was so awesome. Everything that you just said was awesome. First off, self-awareness is a huge part of growing, right? I love your exercise of journaling. Something else that came to my mind, and I think this would be tough for people, but maybe people need to hear this, is going out to 3 to 5 people that are the closest to you, that know you very well, and ask them, what are 3 things that they absolutely love about you? What are 3 things that they think you could improve on, right? That's raising your self-awareness, and that's real too, right? But you're asking for feedback, and again, appreciate that feedback, and then take action towards whatever they give you as that feedback. Again, don't go to strangers on the street, right? And go to people that actually know you and raise your self-awareness. Like John just said, I think that was phenomenal, and wanted to add value by giving another exercise. And then again, like you said, giving to other people. Something that you said that stuck out to me is your circle, right? If you want to give more, be in a circle, surround yourself with more people that give, and then you almost feel like the obligation to give more because they're giving so much. So who you surround yourself with absolutely matters. This connection that John and I have, John inspires me to do more. I'm sure I inspire him to do more sometimes too, without even us having to communicate back and forth on the daily. It's like, all right, John's an Avenger. Let's go. Let's change the world together, right? Yeah, phenomenal, brother. Phenomenal advice. Appreciate that.
I love it, man. This is a very well-rounded podcast, because I've talked to so many people lately, and a lot of the times it leads down to one path, and it's whatever your fitness and nutrition health goals are, it's more than your training and your eating. Like there's so much more to it than that. There's no such thing as a perfect diet or a perfect training protocol, right? It's the one that fits your lifestyle, the one that you like and can stick to. And on that note, I love it if you can give us one, and I know it's gonna be tough, one golden nugget to just leave this episode with, leave the audience with some of Jake's wisdom.
Bro, I'm 29. I don't have that much wisdom. I'm super grateful, dude. I'm still learning. Yeah, if I can narrow down to one thing that I really prioritize emphasizing to my clients, and most people that come to us, John, I think come to us for one underlying factor. It's to build self-confidence. Whether it's building muscle, losing body fat, changing your body composition, at the end of the day, it is for them to feel better about themselves, to increase their self-confidence. And if I can give you one piece of advice that has absolutely transformed my life, and I think it helps a lot of my clients as well, is that self-confidence comes from you keeping the promises that you make to yourself, right? Big or small. If you say you're going to wake up at 5 a.m., wake up at 5 a.m. Do not wake up at 5:10, 5:15. You build a reputation with yourself that if John says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. That is the foundation of self-confidence. I like to tell my clients, because the new year was just happened, I think as we start a new year, or even as we're going throughout the year, we have these things that we know we should do, right? These are the promises. I should prioritize my training. I should prioritize my nutrition. I like to say that people are shoulding all over themselves, right? So my challenge to you, the last piece of advice, is keep the promises you make to yourself. All of those shoulds, turn them into musts. No longer should I work out? I must work out. I have to prioritize my nutrition. I must reach out to John for coaching. This is no longer a should. This is a must. So change all those shoulds into musts and prioritize keeping all the promises that you make to yourself. Don't worry about anyone else. Don't worry about anyone else's expectation. If you say you're going to do something, do it. That's not self-confidence.
Beauty. I couldn't have said that anything close to better than that. That's great, man. I love that. This is the part of the show where you get to shamelessly plug anything you got going on. So where can people find you, my man? I love to keep spreading the positivity, and I'll put everything in the show notes anyway, but just for everyone's information.
Yeah, super grateful, man. Again, dude, what a phenomenal conversation. I feel like we could do this every week and add so much value to people. So it's always great to see your face, man. You're a beautiful human being and you have so much positivity. So thank you for having me on, John. Plug here again, man. I'm not very elaborate. I'm simple. Just you're not going to remember my name, but I'll spell it if you're listening. My name is Jake Sorosiak. JakeSorosiak. Sorosiak. And again, I have a Facebook. I have an Instagram. Again, if you're watching, if you're listening, I guess if you're watching, you can comment down below. If there's anything else that John or I can add value to you, if you have any specific questions for us, please feel free to comment below, shoot us a DM. Again, like we'll do anything we can to add value to your life and answer any questions that we have. But again, thank you. If you're listening right now, if you're still here, this is the end of the podcast and the video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Super grateful for your time.
That's awesome, man. Jake, thanks so much for taking the time, man. We could go on to this podcast for another hour easily, but we'll save that for part 2 that we'll do probably later this year. But yeah, man, thanks so much for taking the time. Super grateful to have you on here, have you as a friend. You're a phenomenal coach, and looking forward to talking to you soon, my guy.
All right, Strong Jon.
You're the man.